sports games. You're also boring and repetitive. All you do is just remake the same crud every single year with the same dumb roster changes. You never do anything of meaning. Now, if I've just paraphrased your own general opinion of sports games, I hereby advise you to just shut up and play NBA 2K12. After having all but perfected its gameplay in NBA 2K11, the developers at 2K Sports instead this time chose to build up the content around that fantastic gameplay in tremendous ways. The new My Player mode is the best example yet of how to play as your own character over the course of a professional sports career. And the classic team matchups, complete with altered era-specific visual presentation, are a thing of beauty. NBA 2K12 is a phenomenal representation of what it means to love a sport and to have that sport transposed onto video game disc. Yes, real basketball is back now, but even if it wasn't, NBA 2K12 would be more than happy to keep any basketball fan warm through the winter months. If you're talking strictly about sheer volume of content, depth of presentation, and ludicrous attention to detail, then there's no doubt that Forza 4 was absolutely the best driving game of 2011. That said, if you're talking about sheer fun, then Dirt 3 takes the taco here. Codemasters' off-road racing series more or less redefined the line between arcade and simulation in Dirt 2, and Dirt 3 toes that line just as beautifully, with tons of great cars, excellent tracks, and a visual engine that's just flat-out gorgeous. Even if the UI is a little goofy, the breadth and quality of content in this game is downright impossible to argue with. Now, if I'm being completely honest here, the iOS game I sank the most hours into this year was Nimblebit's Tiny Tower. But that title is less a game and more an unholy, time-consuming beast of desperate, hideous burden. So I'm disqualifying it from the running altogether. Just full stop, done. Instead, I turn to Half-Brick's Jetpack Joyride, one of the most inexplicably pleasing experiences I've had on a cell phone since I discovered how to easily transfer pornography to my iPhone. Seriously, it's actually pretty easy. Now, while it's not a wholly unique spin on the Running Man genre of mobile games, Jetpack Joyride is simply the best constructed I've ever seen. The touch mechanics are tight, the obstacles are bizarre and intense, and the array of unlockables, objectives, and other hidden craziness is just too addictive to be healthy for anyone. I've essentially beaten the game like 3 or 4 times now, but until I can beat Russ Frushtick's completely absurd 8,000 meter all-time score, I will never be free of the internal torment of Jetpack Joyride! Wait, I mean fun. The infernally tormenting fun of Jetpack Joyride. That's what I was going for. 7. With perhaps the sole exception of Nintendo and the occasional kooky indie developer, people really just don't make games like Rayman Origins anymore. As a 2D platformer, Origins is a veritable celebration of why this genre is awesome in the first place. From the goofy, brilliantly drawn character art to the challenging, sometimes ludicrous level designs, every ounce of Origins is permeated with love, humor, and thrill. It's easily one of the best things Michel Ancel has been involved with in years, and it's a game that I really wish hadn't come out in the middle of the holiday rush, because man, nobody's gonna buy this game, are they? That's really depressing. Batmans! How do you not love the Batmans? In Arkham City, it's totally more Batmans. Except now, it's bigger Batmans, with more villains, and city stuff, and Jesus shit, did I mention the Batmans? Okay, so I'll attempt a modicum of eloquence here, and I'll just simply say that Arkham City is the best representation of what it must be like to be Batman ever. The combat system, already damn near perfected by Rocksteady and Arkham Asylum, is nothing short of brilliant here. It's a system where button mashing is completely reasonable, yet the developers have found a way to intelligently discourage it in favor of more precise timing and careful attacks. The insane array of gadgets, abilities, stealth moves, and other Batman-y nonsense is nearly staggering. And all the while, you're encountering all of Batman's most fearsome foes like you're traipsing through a goddamn bat zoo. Also, again, Batmans! Hey guys, fighting games. I mean, it's crazy, right? All of a sudden, fighting games matter again. And it's almost entirely the result of classic franchises like, say, Street Fighter, simultaneously delving into the heart of fans' nostalgia while also updating the series for the modern era. In a weird way, I'd almost argue that Mortal Kombat does an even better job of this dual attack than Street Fighter 4 ever did. Ed Boon and the crew have taken the fundamental elements of Mortal Kombat, specifically the nonsensical fiction, the over-the-top gore, and the tough, but not overly complex fighting mechanics, and turned them into something that both feels like a harkening back to days of MK yore, while still feeling fresh, new, and exciting in 2011. That there is such an insane amount of content to play through, including the story mode, challenge tower, online modes, unlockables, DLC, and whatever else, it makes the experience feel all that much more engrossing, not to mention downright vital for any fighting game fan. As someone who never got anywhere near finishing Oblivion or Fallout 3, Skyrim has hooked me in a way that Bethesda games haven't managed to previously. I have a hard time nailing down exactly what it is about it, especially since it deals in so many things I typically hate about open world games and role-playing titles. I think for me, it's precisely because Skyrim is so gigantic and so overwhelming that at a certain point, I just kinda let go. I no longer worried about doing the wrong thing or getting the wrong outcome simply because I just stopped caring. In letting go, Skyrim became infinitely more enjoyable to me, and I found myself completely enraptured by what is easily one of the best role-playing games I've ever experienced. If you're having any similar trepidation like my own, I say again, just let go. You'll thank me for it. Saints Row the Third may very well be the apex of video game craziness. It's pure unadulterated mayhem, loosely stitched into a haphazard storyline that's really just an excuse to run around as a sentient toilet with dual-wielded SMGs to murder gangsters, cops, soldiers, zombies, furries, hookers, and whatever other poor unfortunates happen to wander into your field of view. It's the ultimate playground for destruction enthusiasts, and despite some buggy, broken nonsense here and there, it's one of the ultimate examples of why games can be as much cathartic as they are simply fun. An interesting thing about Bastion is that I'm not really the biggest fan of the kinds of isometric RPGs that Supergiant Games so lovingly riffed on in this guaranteed to be Xbox Live Arcade classic. And yet, while I may be less than versed in some of the references and tropes this game is recreating, I really didn't care. Purely on its own merits, Bastion is a wonderful experience from beginning to end. The quality of storytelling is top flight for this type of game, both in the writing and the delivery of said writing by the narrator, whose folksy style makes for an interesting juxtaposition to the colorful, whimsical art style of the game itself. It's one of the few 2011 games I felt the need to finish quickly in elongated stretches of playing. The story, the gameplay, the visuals, and the pure atmosphere were just so transfixing, I kinda didn't want to stop. Now, I hesitate to call anything that isn't The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, the film Ghostbusters, or the original Four Loko formula perfect. But Portal 2 might be the closest I've come to experiencing a perfect video game in ages. It's not so much the scope of what Portal 2 tries to do, but rather the way it manages that scope. The developers at Valve didn't try to reinvent what they had already created with the original Portal, but simply expanded the universe in some of the most bonkers ways imaginable. This is still a linear game, one that revolves around physics-based mindbenders and a cheeky sense of humor. And Valve simply took those two aspects and ramped them up to an almost alarming degree of hilarity. The additions of Stephen Merchant as your trusty sidekick antagonist AI Wheatley, and J.K. Simmons as the wonderfully misguided and aggressively hubristic Cave Johnson are easily two of the best comedic performances ever woven into a video game. And they are of course joined by the still great Ellen McLean as GLaDOS, who is as omnipresent and passive-aggressive as always, albeit largely with the new co-op mode, which, despite appearing more than just like a little side venture to the main quest, is arguably even more fantastically challenging than the main game. In an era where video games are rarely particularly funny or clever, Portal 2 manages to be both simultaneously in both its storytelling and its gameplay. And it's all polished to such a terrific sheen that it's impossible to call Portal 2 anything more than a singular experience in gaming. It's my game of the year, and probably the last several years as well.